This is the Final Word World Cup Daily Day 30, the big one. Afghanistan playing Netherlands in Lucknow. Geoff Lemon and ESPNcricinfo's Matt Roller with you. And Matt, you're going to do the honours and tell us all about the game in the space of 30 seconds.
Well, the Dutchies batting first, they're flying really. They're 70 for 1 after in the 12th over, and then chaos. There's a load of run-outs out of nowhere. 4 of the top 5 are run out. There's some prime barbecuing as well, which we'll get onto from Engelbrecht in particular. And they fold for not a lot, basically. There's a point in the run chase where Afghanistan are 55 for 2, and you're thinking maybe there's a little bit of a chance, there's a strangle, there's a chop on, you're thinking, oh, we're getting some orange magic again, and we don't. We get Afghanistan cruising home to a 3rd win in a row, booking their spot at the 2025 Champions Trophy and keeping that semi-final race a lot more interesting than I feared about 5 or 6 days ago it might be.
There was no orange wave, there was a blue wave with a red hat. That was the wave that we had today. 179 is what the Dutch made, 181 for 3 when Afghanistan ran it down, because Rahmat Shah and Hashmatullah Shahidi just run down targets now. That is what they do. They've been doing it. They did it against Pakistan. They had an unbroken partnership of 96 there. They had another big partnership against Sri Lanka, and they had another half-century partnership here today. They have a calm, they have a composure about the way they do things, which is totally at odds with, even a few weeks ago, in my mind, Afghanistan was still a bad chasing team, and that's what I thought their vulnerability was. So 96 not against Pakistan, 58 against Sri Lanka, and 74 against the Dutch today. They just keep putting on scores. That pair, so Rahmat, his last few innings, 36, 77 not out, 62 and 52, and Hashmatullah's last 3, 48, 58 and 56, and they're all unbeaten for Hashmatullah Shahidi, the captain. There's just this calm and composure about the way they knock off run chasers now.
Well, as you said, it was something that you would say was completely at odds with Afghanistan's reputation generally over the past, even 4 weeks ago, I went to the opening game that they played at the tournament in Dharamsala against Bangladesh, which, by the way, now looks like a monumental upset. The idea that the Afghans, the mighty Afghans, got rolled by lowly Bangladesh looks incredible. But yeah, thinking back to that game, I think they were 80 for 1 at drinks off 15 overs. They were going pretty nicely with the top order, which was their obvious strength. And then it seemed so obvious that for the rest of the tournament that this was going to be the story of it, was going to be their middle order couldn't get going. Shahidi, I think, got something like 18 or 38 in that game. And they were all at sea on a slow and low pitch, which was the sort of thing that you thought Afghanistan should be able to cope with. Since then, I don't know exactly what's happened, but they put in a pretty good performance with the bat against India. And then really, ever since that England game in Delhi, they've been flying. I think, we've obviously seen Jonathan Trott's whiteboard, which has got a lot of exposure, probably more exposure than it deserves to, given it is literally 50 plus 50 plus 50. But
it is the most basic shit in the world, right? It is. We want 150 runs off the first 30 overs.
But you can also, I think, much as it's easy to overplay the influence of the coach because it's a familiar name and all that sort of thing, there is an extent to which you can see the Trott influence in that he was someone who was very good at ticking along nicely in an ODI, never going to be a guy who was destructive like some of Afghanistan's batters are, in Gurbaz in particular, but was very good at playing the sort of innings that we're seeing now from Rahmat and from Shahidi. And yeah, they're absolutely flying, and that game against Australia in Mumbai could be a cracker.
I thought that Hashmatullah Shahidi, there was a moment earlier in the tournament where I thought he's going to have a stinker. It was the England game. He'd just run out Gurbaz, who'd made 80 and was looking terrific. Skipper runs him out with a horrible call, single that wasn't there, and then proceeds to make, I think it was 14 off 28 balls before getting himself out. And I thought we're going to have a 2019 Afghanistan captain situation here. We're going to be, bless his heart and his giant biceps, we're going to have a Gulbuddin Naib situation, when he would bring himself on to bowl an over that would go for 20, and he would promote himself up the order to bat at 3, and it would go terribly. I thought, Hashmatullah Shahidi, are you going to captain like that? Are you going to captain them into trouble? And I mean, that day he did, and they got away with it despite his interventions. But ever since, he's done the job. He's been, and he and Rahmat Shah have both scored much more quickly than they have in their careers. They've been guys with career strike rates around 70 who found it hard to turn the scoring over. They've gone it close to a runner ball in the chases that they've batted in through this World Cup.
Yeah, and also I suppose what we saw tonight immediately after the game was the challenges that it's easy to forget about when you're talking about Afghanistan cricket. Shahidi just pops up at the presentation and says, I lost my mother 3 months ago, dedicate this victory to everything that's going on with Afghanistan refugees in Pakistan at the moment. And you suddenly remember that after such a composed, cool batting performance of someone who looks like he's not got a trouble in the world, you then see, a guy who's clearly got so much going on outside of the game, and that's almost his escape from real life and what the situation is at home. So, incredible story, and I think that's the sort of, it's the old cliche with Afghanistan, what a great story, but it is incredible when you think of a team that has won one game in 2 World Cups coming into this tournament, who started with a pretty humbling defeat to Bangladesh, and have all of the political backdrop to then be in this position where actually, if they give the Aussies, the mighty Australia, a go next week, they could do it.
Well, they're on 8 points, so they're on 4 wins. And people who are first-time players with the causality of time will say, well, if they'd beaten Bangladesh, they would be on 10 points. Not necessarily, because if they'd beaten Bangladesh, they might not have then gone on to beat Pakistan. They might have got nervous because they had early points. Who knows? Other things could have happened. The other results would have happened differently. They might have still won games after that. They might not. That's how causality works. That's how time works. It goes in one direction. You can't change one thing at the start without changing the things after that. Let's talk about the Dutch, who, if they wanted to change one thing at the start, and if one thing affected the rest of it, it was Max O'Dowd, who has struggled. He's made starts. He's made basically between 16 and 18 in every innings. Finally got past the dreaded teens. Hit a boundary on 16 to go for 20, to go to 20. This was after an early wicket. So they changed things around a bit. The Dutch have been changing this team a lot. So Nida Monaro, who was playing as the spare bat, got left out a couple of games ago. They had Shariz Ahmad for one game, and then they brought in Shakib Zulfikar for him. So 2 leg spinners in consecutive matches. Zulfikar bowled some, what I would generously describe as club level wrist spin that got carted for the most part, although he did pick up a wicket with a caught and bowled after looping one up there that just took so long to come down that Rahmat Shah chipped it back and was furious with himself. He was literally like, how did I hit that? But probably in Pashto instead. Anyway, the point is that Max O'Dowd is finally up and running. He gets to 42. Mujeeb isn't bowling that well after a couple of tight first overs. He gets the LBW, and then he's bowling a bit too much leg stump line. He's being flicked away through fine leg, and they're bowling too wide the other side of the wicket, and Max O'Dowd's going through point and slapping the ball away and down through deep third and so on. Gets to 42 in quick time, and like you said, they're up to 72 off 68 balls at the point where he takes what should be a comfortable 2 down to fine leg, coming back for the second. He's hurrying, he's not cruising, but then he realises, I might need to put in a bit of a dive here, and he's not quite placed for the dive, and it's Azmatullah, who is fast becoming one of my favourite cricketers, who pings the stumps down direct from fine leg, just direct hit. Max O'Dowd's a couple of inches short, and then suddenly the run-outs begin.
Yeah, and it's so casual as well, that moment from Azmat, where obviously, it's a dead-eye run-out from deep fine leg, but it all starts with him sort of sauntering towards the ball, and he almost lulls O'Dowd into this false sense of security, at which point you wonder at exactly which moment it was where O'Dowd suddenly goes, oh, fuck. And it's just all gone horribly wrong, and he's short, and then it all goes a bit wrong. I actually feel this is probably a niche point, but I know that the Final Word Daily listeners like a niche point.
This is a place for niche points. You are safe with us.
I feel as though the Dutch, I'm a massive fan of Scott Edwards. I think he's captained brilliantly. I think he's got the most dismissals of any keepers in the tournament. He's been very, very good. I really feel like he should be batting 4 for the Dutch. He got not off 1 today. It wouldn't have made a massive difference, I don't think, but Engelbrecht batted 4 today and just didn't have any tempo, any rhythm early in his innings. And I think Edwards is, despite his dismissal today, where it was a bit calamitous, he's a very, very good player of spin. He's done well against Rashid Khan in the past. He played Adil Rashid very well against England in an ODI series about 18 months ago now, coming up for. And I just feel like maybe Edwards at number 4 is the answer, where they have a little bit more tempo. Because Engelbrecht, by the time he basically smashes one to mid-off, calls Ackerman through because he's a bit desperate. He's on 11 off, I think, maybe 12 or 31 balls. Smashes it to mid-off, takes the single. Ackerman's miles short, and that's when it really starts going terribly wrong. Maybe if Edwards is there and he's, I don't know, if he's got 10 off 20 or even something as slow as that, maybe there's not the sort of panic that sets in over the course of the next few overs where they're just so stuck.
They put 4 spinners today against Afghanistan, like they did against Pakistan. They brought Noor Ahmad back, the left-arm wrist spinner. And Edwards might have been a little better equipped to be able to deal with that or to find a way. It was the real Kevin Peterson style of running, wasn't it? Just smash it straight at the fielder. I used to call that the Morse code run, ... dash. And Engelbrecht, so he just cooks Colin Ackerman. It was a very South African vibe there, so it does. Peterson does come into the conversation. Runs out Ackerman, who's going to the striker's end, it's like, why would there be a run there? Like, okay, fine, I'll respond, but he hadn't given him enough time. And then Edwards, who plays a sweep shot, gets a bit of glove on it, and he's not sure where it's gone. I think, so technically it goes in the book as a run out. There's no way he was looking for a run, I don't think. They think because he took a step forward he was thinking of running. I think he's just trying to figure out how to turn around, and he didn't know which direction to turn in to find out where the ball had gone. So he takes a step in order to try to turn back the other way. The ball's ended up with the wicketkeeper, who smacks the bails off, and he's a metre out of his ground, Edwards. So he's run out the very next ball, like 2 run outs back to back. Ikram Ali Kil, who then takes 2 more catches and a stumping immediately. He's robbed of a dismissal there, because that was a stumping. That should have gone down as a stumping, and the bowler's robbed of a wicket. But yeah, it all happens quickly from that point, and then there's the other run out. So Engelbrecht's got his way to a half century, relatively slowly, but you know he's trying to repair some of the damage that he did. And then Rollo van der Merwe, who's such a competitor, but clips it straight to mid-wicket and runs. Engelbrecht's just standing there. He's been Ackermaned. The same thing happened to him. It's like, oh God, okay, we're taking a single, and he's nowhere really near it by the time that throw comes back in. So he's run out, the 4th run out in a row, and it's pretty much a formality from there. Van der Merwe skies one, and maybe they're just tired by now. The Dutch, you tend to see this with lower ranked teams who come in and give a good account of themselves. They've had their big win over South Africa. They had a significant win against Bangladesh, and usually when it comes to the team that's supposedly closest to them in terms of ability, the one that they might actually be most likely to turn over, they very rarely do. That sort of last place, last seeded team in these long league stages, they very rarely knock off that side that's closest to them.
Yeah, it just felt like bad in-game decision making is the simplest way I can put it, where I don't know, there is a bit of a South African theme actually. I was thinking, was it 3 out of 4 run-outs of South African-born players? Maybe there's something to it. Maybe that's the choke of the World Cup, is Netherlands having three South Africans run out in Lucknow.
Well, they all involved, yeah. So Dowd's a New Zealander and Edwards is Australian in terms of birth, but there was definitely a South African influence.
Yeah. There's Engelbrecht in a couple, Ackermans,
Ackermans
so Van der Merwe's in one of them.
Yep.
So I don't know. Maybe there's a little nugget there, but yeah, I think it and I hate using this as a reason that things happen, but there is an element of people making bad decisions in heat as well. I think, I think any person who's not used to being in the subcontinent, who spends a period of time here, occasionally you feel absolutely fried after an afternoon out in the sun.
Yeah.
Probably more so if you're from the Netherlands, and you can make bad decisions under pressure, and I think we saw a lot of that today.
So they did, and Afghanistan didn't when they batted second, cruised at home, 3 down in the end. So they've qualified, basically. We're happy to lock them in for the Champions Trophy in final word qualifications anyway. And the Dutch are out. Yes, they could still get to 8 points, but they, again, like Adam and I spoke about with Sri Lanka last night, they won't be able to turn their net run rate around sufficiently to, even if they're bowling a team out for 10 and chasing it in and over, they're probably not getting enough net run rate back to try to put themselves into semi-final contention, but they could be in contention for Champions Trophy spots. And that, particularly say if England lose to Australia up here in Ahmedabad where we are, waiting for that game, if England lose to Australia, then it basically becomes a Champions Trophy playoff between the Dutch and the English in the subsequent match.
We all thought it was going to be the Euros, the European Championship final, that game, November 8th in Pune, England versus Netherlands. Who's the best team in Europe? We find out once and for all. Ireland tried and failed to qualify, same as Scotland. It was going to be the one. It was going to be the birth of the 4 nations ODI tournament, the round robin that saves bilateral series, because it's actually a quadrilateral series. Instead, it's actually a huge game, because for England, it's kind of unfathomable, the idea that they won't get to that Champions Trophy. It might actually do them some good in the long run, because it might actually, for once, clear some spots in their schedule. They'll inevitably then fill it by going to the Caribbean on a test tour instead. But it's a massive game, and for the Dutch, the Champions Trophy, England didn't know, because of the fact that the ECB have changed so many key personnel, operations, chief executive, chairman, coach, etc. The Dutch didn't know because they weren't invited to the room where it was decided. No. They had the associate member representatives who were representing teams that weren't even in the picture, all ranked 20 and below in the world. And the Dutchies were there basically, found out a couple of days ago and were like, oh, fantastic, top 8 gets you Champions Trophy. They've been once before, which I think was 2002, where it was a very different tournament. They lost 2 games and were sent home. This time, it's guaranteed, something to work towards, something to aim for, something they can lock in sponsors for long term as well, potentially, because for this World Cup, they had 3 months between the final qualifier in the start of this tournament. This time they could have 18 months of preparation period, not only for the players to improve, to have some stability, to have some long-term contracts because they have a guaranteed participation fee, but also to then grow the game through securing sponsorship, all that sort of thing. So it's hard to state just how big it would be for the Dutchies. And I think also, people underestimate just how small their budgets are compared to other teams. I think Ireland under the new ICC model are getting something like 17 million US a year from ICC revenue streams, and the Dutchies are going to get 2 million. It's 8.5 times 2. It's incredible. So the fact that they've achieved what they already have, and then could achieve something even more significant, really, by coming top 8 would be massive.
Champions Trophy 2025. They're going to win it. They're going to run the table. I hope they do. It'll be a hell of a story. All right, let us go now to the Final Word Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame, where we pick the things that we enjoyed today. It's brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. You probably don't know this because I only found this out yesterday. There is an interactive ancient Egypt exhibition at Westfield Stratford City. Now, we have Westfields in Australia where I come from, but they did not have anything as cool as that. The number of things you can do there, where you can go there and donate blood to help people out. You can go there and have a climb on the rock climbing wall. You can go there and have a nice day of eating. Or you can go to the ancient Egypt interactive exhibition that is so realistic that the British Museum is planning to knock it off as we speak. When you get back to London, promise me you're going to go through the ancient Egypt exhibition at Stratford City.
I think it'll probably be the first thing I do off the plane. There's obviously, I know there'll be a pint of Guinness waiting at the local. My girlfriend will be there, but the first thing I'll do is straight down Westfield.
Victoria line would take you pretty much all the way there, wouldn't it? The Elizabeth line, the purple one, the new purple one goes pretty much straight to Stratford City, I reckon. So that would be the ideal thing to do from Heathrow. You can find the links in our notes, or you can just pop it into Google. You'll figure it out. Hall of Fame. It was Asmatullah for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I love Asmatullah. I think out of nowhere he suddenly started batting 5 and just knocking again. He scored about 105 today out of nowhere. Where at the start of the tournament you had Najibullah Zadran, who's been part of Afghanistan's side for forever. I sort of didn't even clock that he was going for a bad run of form. I was just like, no, Najibullah will bat 5 because that's what happens with Afghanistan. And then suddenly Asmatullah's been batting 5 and been going seriously well. He has this sort of weird role with the ball where he nibbles it around a bit early on. He bowls with pretty good pace, has a bit of a whippy wrist, and everything seems to work. Then he comes back at the end of the innings, generally gets pumped, and then he bats 5, and it all seems to piece together somehow at the moment. And it's all working. He's one of these guys where there's an alternative World Cup in which Asmatullah does basically nothing, and this World Cup he's been brilliant.
And then he just does the casual run out from fine leg with a little wrist whip that just sort of flies in, and he's good. I'm going to go with something that is not related to this game, but it's related to yesterday because I didn't get to bring it up yesterday. I was looking at times that both openers had made golden ducks in an ODI, which I wanted to talk about yesterday but forgot. So in terms of, I was running through the list. So Ahmed Sohail and Graham Gooch both make golden ducks in the '92 World Cup, but they're playing in different games on the same day. So that was fun, but that's happened 4 other times that players in different matches on the same day, openers this is, have made golden ducks. Ramiz Raja and Desmond Haynes doing it in 1993 in Cape Town at the Total International Series. That was in the same match. Pakistan got bowled out for 43 that day with 6 ducks on the scorecard. Very reminiscent of Sri Lanka against India. Patrick Patterson blew them up. So there are 6 times where the players from different teams have done it, but we're looking at players from the same team, which is what the Sri Lankans did. 3 previous occasions, Piet Rinke and Terry Duffin. I love it that I've been covering cricket for so long and I can still find international players I've never heard of. For Zimbabwe in 2006, Fidel Edwards knocked them both over in an over. And then the others have all been in World Cup matches, which is weird. 2015, Afghanistan versus Sri Lanka, Tiramane and Dilshan both made first ballers. It was a Zadran attack, Daulat Zadran and Shapur Zadran. And then I think Sangakkara made 100 and Sri Lanka won the game anyway. 2019, that brilliant New Zealand-West Indies game, Sheldon Cottrell gets Guptill and Munro in the first over, and then Williamson makes 100 and New Zealand win. So the teams that have taken the 2 golden ducks haven't won the game before India did it last night with Nasanka and big Frankie Roons, Dimuth Karunaratne, who both made golden ducks, one in the first, one in the second over. And the last bit is that out of those 6 occasions where players in different teams, openers in different teams, have both made golden ducks, one of those games involved Pathum Nasanka in the World Cup qualifiers when Max O'Dowd at the other end got a first ball duck. So that links it back to our game today, and Pathum Nasanka is in 2 both openers golden duck rare categories in the space of about 3 months.
That's honestly completely blown my mind. And what a rap as well. Back to Max O'Dowd. Incredible. The man with is possibly the best ass in cricket, I think. Is that fair to say? Is that objectifying?
The broadest beam. We're just looking at pure physicality, the power, but it wasn't enough power to get him home because he got run out earlier today. All right, that's it. That's the final word. World Cup Daily, brought to you by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. Thanks to Matt Roller for coming on the show. If you like what we do, patreon.com/the final word. We'll be back with you tomorrow for day 31, which will be me and you at the big one, the big stadium for England Australia, which comes after the early game, which is two teams that have momentarily slipped my mind. Who is it?
It's Pakistan against New Zealand at the Chinnaswamy in Bangalore.
Oh, the small matter of who's going to qualify fourth in the Pakistani-New Zealand game. So Adam will have that one with Cameron Ponsonby. We'll have the double dailies tomorrow, and we'll see you then.